Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. More borrowing, bigger plans. The Monetary Board clears over $6 billion in new foreign loans. Fill up while you can. Fuel prices are going up again this week. Marcos blocks the BCDA bill, saying it puts public funds at risk. And Greenland stays firm. Denmark and Greenland strengthen their alliance amid U.S. interest in the Arctic. First, let's check how global financial markets closed on Friday. Wall Street ended in positive territory as investors parsed a fresh wave of earnings reports and watched for signs of easing tensions between the United States and China. China exempted some U.S. imports from its 125% tariff, even as it denied U.S. President Donald Trump's claims of a breakthrough in negotiations. Meanwhile, first quarter earnings are in full swing, with 73% of S&P 500 companies so far beating expectations.
We really think that if we see the hard data come out as it has, and we see progress on tariffs, the most important thing is going to be material progress on either tariff exemptions or bringing tariffs down. That's the only way that we're going to get out of this. Another point I'd like to say is that the Fed independence is going to be mandatory for our success. So to see the tone shift over the past few weeks has been stomach churning. We're glad to see that now Fed Chair Jerome Powell is not going to be at risk.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average inched up by 0.1%. The S&P 500 climbed 0.7%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumped 1.3%. In Europe, stocks also posted gains. The UK's FTSE 100 added 0.1%. Germany's DAX surged 0.8%, and France's CAC 40 higher by 0.5%. Here at home, the Monetary Board approved $6.3 billion in public sector foreign borrowings in the first quarter, more than double the level approved a year ago. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, shows this is up from $2.87 billion in the same period last year. The new borrowings include $3.33 billion in bond issuances, $1.46 billion for 5 project loans, and $1.5 billion for 3 program loans. The BSP says all these foreign borrowings have medium to long-term maturities. The bond issuances will help cover budget needs, including socio-economic programs. Program loans, meanwhile, will fund economic development and finance initiatives, while project loans will support transportation and infrastructure projects. The Philippine banking system continues to miss its mandated lending targets for micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, as of end December 2024, sparking concerns over funding access for the country's economic backbone. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas shows loans to MSMEs reached 546.22 billion pesos by year-end. That's just 5% of the banking sector's total loan portfolio of 11.25 trillion pesos, well below the 10% requirement under the Magna Carta for MSMEs. Under the law, banks must allocate 8% of their loan book to micro and small businesses and 2% to medium-sized enterprises. MSMEs account for 99% of all businesses in the country and employ a majority of Filipinos. Limited access to credit threatens to stall post-pandemic recovery, slow job creation, and weaken grassroots economic growth. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas clarifies that it is not trying to control how much money enters or leaves the country when it intervenes in the foreign exchange market. This comes as export-driven economies in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines, face fresh uncertainty from U.S. President Donald Trump's new tariffs, adding pressure to global trade and currencies. The SB Governor Eli Remolona Jr. says the central bank only intervenes when peso movements could feel inflation, not to restrict capital flows. Speaking at the International Monetary Fund meetings in Washington, Remolona explains that the BSP acts when peso fluctuations get too large and risk driving import prices higher. He assures investors that the Philippines remains open to global trade and investment and that capital controls are not on the table. The assurance comes as the country works to stay stable amid global trade shocks, manage inflation, and attract foreign investments ahead of the 2025 midterm elections. Amid global headwinds and fresh trade tensions, BDO Unibank posts record profits for 2024, but signs of a slowdown are starting to emerge. Sujin Kim has the details.
In the face of intensifying global challenges, from rate volatility, currency swings to the impact of Trump 2.0 tariffs, BDO Unibank delivered a new record high net income of 82 billion pesos in 2024. However, net income growth slowed to 7% in the first quarter of 2025, a sharp deceleration compared to the 12% growth posted for full year 2024. The bank attributed the slowdown to spread compression and lower interest rates, although BDO's loan portfolio remained resilient, growing 12% year-on-year to reach 3.3 trillion pesos as of the first quarter.
We focus on what we can control and let the environment, we'll adjust to the environment as it happens.
BDO also flagged key risks for 2025, including further interest rate cuts and FX volatility, higher commodity prices, and limited fiscal flexibility from the government amid its twin deficits.
The challenge here is actually where to find growth. So the likely effect of the tariff wars and all of the uncertainty is that growth will slow down. But it doesn't mean that the economy will tank or we have a problem. We'll have a slowdown in growth. So banks that are able to find growth will continue to do well. Those that have difficulty finding growth will fall behind.
Despite the cautious outlook, BDO maintains that it is armed with strong capital buffers and provisions to weather any unexpected shocks.
Should banks expect the worst? The answer is yes. So what do we do? If you look at us, we have what we call provisioning for unexpected loss. If you look at our provisions, they're much higher than our competitors because we know that there's a potential unexpected loss out there that we have to plan for.
Even amid global headwinds, BDO continues to expand its footprint in the countryside, betting on the growth potential of underserved communities.
We believe that the growth in the Philippines will come from the underserved sector. A third to 80% of our new branches will be if the network bank model, going into the unserved or underserved areas.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
If you're still running on gas and diesel, this one's for you. Fuel prices are set to jump again on Tuesday, April 29th. Gasoline could go up by as much as 1 peso and 40 centavos per liter. Diesel by 1 peso and kerosene by 70 centavos. The Energy Department says global pressures, including U.S. sanctions on Iran and stronger demand for crude, are driving prices higher. So now's a good time to fill up before those pump prices start climbing. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are moving this morning following the gains in the West last Friday. The Nikkei 225 is higher by 0.7%, but that's the only one in the green so far. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, Shanghai's Composite, and Singapore Straits Times indices, they're all in the red. Hong Kong Hang Seng down by 0.4%, as with the Shanghai Composite, and Singapore Straits Times Index down by half of a percent. Here at home, U.S.-China trade tensions continue to lift market sentiment. Now, for the short term, support is seen at around 6,000, with resistance between 6,400 and 6,490. Now, investors are watching global trade talks and local economic signals to guide their next moves. Now, right now, as of about 10:13 this morning, the main gauge is in the green, higher by 0.8% to 63.18. The broader all shares index is flat with a downward bias, lower by about 0.1% to 36.93. As for the sub indices, everything is in the green except for the mining and oil counter, which is down sharply in early trade, down by a little over 1%. Now, volume is at 98 million and value is at 777 million pesos. So far, we've got 74 advancers, 49 decliners, while 46 stocks remain unchanged. Now, in the currency market, the peso opened slightly weaker at 56.28 to the greenback, down from its previous close of 56.27. Now, in other news, CIMB Bank Philippines, one of the country's fastest growing all-digital banks, says it has fully returned funds to all customers who reported unauthorized transactions over the weekend. In a statement, CIMB confirms that the incident of unauthorized fund transfers on the night of April 26th have been resolved. This comes after several customers took to social media to report missing funds, some amounting to as much as 500,000 pesos. The bank temporarily shut down all its online services to conduct a systems check. While CIMB says all affected accounts have been fully reimbursed, it has yet to explain what caused the incident that compromised customer savings. CIMB Bank Philippines is a unit of Malaysia-based CIMB Group and has grown popular in the country for its high-interest savings products and mobile-only platform. Hackers targeting banks, hospitals, government agencies, and schools will now be classified as terrorists under the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020. Speaking at a FinTech Alliance.ph event, Information and Communications Technology Secretary Henry Aguda says this move follows President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s directive to strengthen the country's digital defenses amid rising cyber threats. The reclassification means authorities can arrest suspects without a warrant and detain them for up to 14 days without formal charges. It also allows law enforcers to freeze bank accounts, seize assets, and monitor communications subject to court approval. Aguda emphasized that law-abiding citizens and businesses have nothing to fear. But he does warn that cyber attackers who target critical institutions, including financial systems and public services, will be dealt with the same seriousness as physical terrorism. This move reflects the growing importance of cybersecurity in safeguarding the country's economic stability, with banks, healthcare, infrastructure, and education now part of the frontline defense. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vetoes a bill seeking to amend the charter of the Basis Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA, citing risks to financial stability and government control. In his veto message to Congress, Marcos warns that proposed changes, including a plan to raise BCDA's unauthorized capital stock to 100 billion pesos, could strain public finances and undermine the government's one-fund policy, which ensures flexible, unified budget management. He also notes that some government agencies flag provisions that could compromise the state's interests in managing strategic public assets. BCDA plays a critical role in transforming former military bases, including Clark and Bonifacio Global City, into major economic centers. The veto signals the administration's push to balance infrastructure expansion with fiscal discipline ahead of the 2025 midterm elections and growing investor scrutiny. The luxury property market in the Philippines continues to show strong momentum, and Ayala Land is moving to tap into that growing demand. The developer is setting new targets to expand its high-end portfolio, even as global uncertainty sparks questions about how long the boom can last. Sujin Kim returns with the details.
The ranks of the ultra-rich in the Philippines are expanding, and Ayala Land, one of the country's largest property developers, is leading the charge in capitalizing on the luxury real estate boom.
We believe that wealth is actually being created in the Philippines. If you look at different indicators of that, asset under management and private wealth has been growing. If you look at luxury car sales, it's up 20%. If you look at our sales in Greenbelt, for example, we have 3 times the number of luxury brands. So there is indeed wealth being created in the country. The challenge for us is to get a bigger share of that wealth creation.
To do this, the company is targeting aggressive growth.
The target is really to grow 2 times GDP. So we are indexing in a way our growth targets to how well the country performs. No, it is, but it's 2 times GDP. So if GDP is to grow at 6%, our target is to grow at 12%.
But external risks, particularly from global trade, are weighing on investor confidence.
Kalaban ng any business is uncertainty and turmoil. I guess all these changes in talks of the tariffs, changing trading patterns, it's the uncertainty that concerns us. Because if there's uncertainty, not just for us, but our buyers also will not have the confidence to invest. And so what keeps me up at night are uncertainties.
Nearly a third of buyers are overseas Filipinos, with over 7% coming from the United States, leaving the firm vulnerable to policy shifts abroad. On the other hand, to fund its expansion, Ayala Land plans to raise 55 billion pesos through sustainability-linked bonds. The structure offers lower credit spreads if green targets are met, aligning financial strategy with climate commitments. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The country's semiconductor and electronics industry, still the Philippines' top export driver, sees signs of a modest recovery this year. SEPI, or the Semiconductor and Electronics Industries in the Philippines Foundation Incorporated, says improved investment incentives and lower U.S. tariffs could help boost exports. SEPI President Danilo Lachica says that they initially projected flat growth, but are now hoping for a 1 to 2% expansion after 2 straight years of industry contraction. Electronic products remain the Philippines' top export, accounting for more than 53% of total shipments in 2024, making a rebound crucial for the broader economy. Bilyonaryo Frank Lau, who built a foothold in Chinese restaurants and coffee chains, is expanding into the highly competitive lechon manok segment. Lau's newest venture, Chiki Fam, opened 15 stores in Cebu in just 1 week, an aggressive move in a market already dominated by mass market brands like Andox and Chooks to Go. The expansion strategy appears to target family dining and takeout, a segment that remains resilient despite economic headwinds. Jacob Lau, president of the Strong Group and son of Frank Lau, says that the decision to launch in Cebu first reflects a broader plan to scale regionally before going national. Celebrities such as actress Valerie Concepcion and basketball player Kevin Kiambao boosted visibility at the grand opening, but company executives emphasized that long-term success will depend on brand recognition, unit economics, and local market adoption. Lau's entry into the lechon manok space signals growing interest from higher capitalized players in mass food retail, a segment seen as defensive amid uncertain consumer spending. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, raises the alert level at the Bulusan volcano from 0 to 1. This comes after a phreatic eruption from Bulusan summit crater around 4:30 early Monday morning, lasting for 24 minutes and sending a plume 4,500 meters into the air. Ashfall was reported across several villages in Sorsogon province. The plume drifted west to southwest, prompting alerts for communities, infrastructure, and air traffic in the area. Alert level 1 means Bulusan is under low-level unrest, with more phreatic eruptions still possible in the coming days. PHIVOLCS reminds local governments, businesses, and residents that entry into the 4-kilometer permanent danger zone remains strictly prohibited. Bulusan's unrest comes at a time when investors are increasingly factoring in climate risks, supply chain disruptions, and business continuity challenges in regional centers, underlying the importance of disaster preparedness for communities and companies operating across southern Luzon. The Department of Agriculture directs the National Food Authority, or NFA, to start moving rice stocks to the Visayas ahead of the pilot rollout of the 20 peso per kilo rice program. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tu Laurel Jr. says it will take several weeks to transport thousands of 50-kilogram bags from NFA warehouses to designated areas in the Visayas. The Commission on Elections rule allowing it to proceed for the midterm elections. Now, the rice supply comes from the NFA's buffer stocks, which recently hit a record 378,000 metric tons, equivalent to 7.56 million bags. The pilot will cover regions 6, 7, and 8, with plans to sustain the program nationwide until 2028, according to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Now, this initiative marks a major step toward clamping down on food inflation, a key priority for the government amid global commodity volatility, election-driven spending pressures, and renewed pushes for agriculture self-sufficiency. Okay, we're going to be taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. A new business reality show at the University of Santo Tomas called Roars to Riches gives student entrepreneurs the chance to pitch ideas to seasoned experts. Joan Manalo has the details.
In a world where big business ideas often start small, a group of college students is proving that age is no barrier to ambition. At the University of Santo Tomas, a new reality business show is roaring to life, and it is called Roars to Riches. Produced by OHA Studios, a block of third-year AB communication students, Roars to Riches is more than just a class project. It is a 3-episode business show inspired by American TV show Shark Tank, giving aspiring Tomasian entrepreneurs called Cubs the chance to pitch their startup ideas to a panel of seasoned business experts known as the Tigers.
We came to a thinking na what if we create a show that talks about business, especially right now na business world is really like a trend, especially the young entrepreneurs nowadays po no, na sa 21st century na nagbo-boom na yung mga businesses natin.
Unlike typical business competitions, Roars to Riches doesn't just celebrate pitches. It spotlights mentorship, creativity, and collaboration.
We really wanted the students or the competitors to learn from this show and to really learn from seasoned professionals and to learn from them and to get experience from them because they are, they are students.
The show also pushes beyond entertainment. It is a crash course in critical thinking, business instinct, and negotiation, all played out in front of the cameras.
Pag sinabing business-related show, parang it's more of like tanungan lang. It's more of like parang the thoughts of marketing professionals, marketing professors towards the young entrepreneurs. But this show has something to do with mentorship on how they will navigate their business ideas to a real one.
And at its core, Roars to Riches ties into a bigger mission, empowering young people to become catalysts for sustainable innovation, inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 9. With this, the team hopes to further expand the show to inspire more student entrepreneurs in the country.
We can really focus more on inviting more like professionals or international professionals, ganon, and we really can reach a wider audience. Kunwari, more student entrepreneurs sa ibang colleges, ganon. What if we can reach student entrepreneurs from more colleges or possibly more universities?
Running from April 28 to May 13 on UST Tiger TV's Facebook page, Roars to Riches isn't just a show. It is a launchpad for the next generation of business trailblazers. And it all started with a simple idea that young minds, when given a stage, can roar louder and reach higher than ever before. Joan Manalo, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippine Navy confirms the presence of Chinese vessels in Philippine waters as the Philippine Carries new Nemesis system, a high-speed anti-ship missile platform, has been deployed in Batanes as part of a maritime key terrain security operations. The deployment comes amid heightened tensions in the region, with the Nemesis system marking a new addition to the long-standing bilateral exercise aimed at boosting deterrence against China's incursions into Philippine waters. La Union 1st District Representative Paolo Ortega sounds the alarm over alleged foreign interference in the upcoming midterm elections. Citing evidence presented by the National Security Council, Ortega points to reported agreements between the Chinese embassy in Manila and a Makati-based public relations firm, allegedly used to spread pro-Beijing propaganda online. Ortega also issues a sharp warning to candidates suspected of aligning with Chinese interests. He says, quote, any candidate that sides with China while they claim our territory and target our military are puppets, not public servants, end quote, calling on voters to be vigilant in choosing their leaders. Poll watchdog NAMFREL raises concerns over alleged Chinese interference in the upcoming elections as the Migrant Workers Department moves to encourage more overseas Filipinos to cast their votes. Joan Manalo has the story.
NAMFREL National Chairperson Lito Averia stressed that the public should look out for individuals or groups being paid by a foreign country to interfere in elections. Averia believes this is a serious matter that must be properly investigated and prosecuted.
Mas maganda na makasuhan sila, maimbestigahan ng mabuti kung ano yung kanilang aksyon. Dahil kung sila ay pinapayaran ng ibang bansa, ibang usapan na yan. Control farm, bayaran ka na para binebenta mo na rin. Kasi nga, there's no place para sa atin na atakihin yung ating halalan.
This is in light of the recent Senate hearing that revealed how the Chinese embassy in the Philippines allegedly paid for troll farms through a Makati-based firm. Averia adds, legal action can be taken against those involved, just like in previous cases where people were charged for manipulating online content. This includes third parties, proxies, and so-called keyboard warriors who may be paid to spread false information. He added that such activities can also be traced to prevent online disinformation. Meanwhile, authorities are working to encourage more overseas Filipinos to vote. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said they have set up voter registration kiosks and counters at DMW offices, apart from its education campaign. Kakdak also emphasized that the DMW is part of the Election Board of Canvassers, and it continues to work with the DFA and embassies to support ongoing overseas voting.
And then we work closely with the DFA. Ang ambassador heads yung electoral effort dun sa voting effort dun sa embahada. Kaya't kabilang tayo sa Board of Canvassers, yung mga tao natin sa migrant, kung saan meron tayong migrant workers office.
The COMELEC previously reported that only around 95,000 of the 1.2 million overseas voters have enrolled in overseas voting, which will end on the election day, May 12. With this, NAMFREL and the DMW continue the call for vigilance in order to safeguard the integrity of the Philippine elections. Joan Manalo, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We're taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Stay with us. Celebration turns tragic in Vancouver, Canada. At least 11 people are killed and dozens more injured after a man drives an SUV into a crowd at a Filipino community festival. Police arrested a 30-year-old Vancouver man at the scene Sunday evening. Authorities say he has a significant history of mental health issues. Investigators stress there is no evidence of terrorism, but they are still working to determine a motive.
Right there, some car, some Audi, black Audi, he just like stopped or whatever. I don't know, but from over there, from like the start right there, he just pushed the gas all the way through the whole block right there, crashing into like everyone in his way.
Can you describe a little bit what you saw?
I heard like a bunch of like crashing and stuff. Then I walked down like not even like half the block. I just saw like a bunch of bodies and everything, and I just went back.
The incident happened during Lapu-Lapu Day celebrations, a multi-block street party featuring Filipino food, music, and traditions. Filipino-American artist Apple Diab, who headlined the festival concert, says he is heartbroken for the victims' families and shared hotlines for witness support, distress counseling, and blood donations to help the injured. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is expressing deep sadness over the deadly incident at a Filipino community festival in Vancouver, Canada, where at least 11 people were killed and dozens more injured. In a statement, President Marcos offers his sympathies to the families of the victims, saying that he shares in their pain and stands in solidarity with the Filipino community abroad. He has ordered the Philippine Embassy and Consulate in Vancouver to provide full assistance to the victims and to work closely with Canadian authorities to ensure a swift and thorough investigation. Marcos also urges Filipinos in Canada to remain calm but vigilant and to continue supporting one another during this difficult time. Elsewhere in the world, U.S. President Donald Trump calls on Russia to halt its attacks on Ukraine and warns that Washington could walk away from peace talks if no progress is made, raising new uncertainty for global markets. Speaking to reporters in New Jersey, Trump says he is disappointed that Russia continues its military offensive despite efforts to negotiate a settlement. He adds that this one-on-one meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Vatican went well. Trump and Zelensky were both in Rome over the weekend for the funeral of Pope Francis. This was their first face-to-face encounter since a contentious meeting in Washington last February. A dispute that had cast doubts on the future of Western support for Ukraine.
I think the meeting went well. We'll see what happens over the next few days. We'll probably learn a lot. I was very disappointed that missiles were flying by Russia, but that missiles were flying. Very disappointing. We'll see how it goes. On the Iran situation, I think we're doing very well. I think a deal's going to be made there. That's going to happen. Pretty sure it's going to happen. We'll have something without having to start dropping bombs all over the place.
Trust President Putin?
Say it again?
You trust President Putin?
You know, in about 2 weeks.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent denies discussing President Donald Trump's new tariffs with his Chinese counterpart, even as markets watch for any breakthrough in the U.S.-China trade tensions. Bessent says his conversations with Chinese officials at the International Monetary Fund meetings in Washington focus on financial stability and global risk monitoring, not on trade or tariffs. He also says he does not know whether President Trump has spoken directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the issue. The comment comes amid growing confusion, with Trump claiming talks are ongoing, while Beijing insists that there have been no formal negotiations.
Well, look, I think that there is a path here. So the first path will be, again, a de-escalation, which I think the Chinese are going to have. Then I think there can be an agreement, in principle. These 17 or 18 important trade deals that we're negotiating, the actual papering of the trade deal, a trade deal can take months, but an agreement in principle and the good behavior and staying within the parameter of the deal by our trading partners can keep the tariffs from ratcheting back to the maximum level.
Greenland and Denmark move to reinforce their strategic ties as global interest in the resource-rich Arctic region intensifies. Greenland's new Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, meets with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen in Copenhagen, a public show of unity following months of tension sparked by U.S. President Donald Trump's assertions that Greenland should become part of the United States. Both leaders stressed their commitment to strengthen defense and economic cooperation in the Arctic, while reaffirming that Greenland's future must be decided by Greenlanders themselves. Greenland, home to vast untapped mineral and energy resources, has become a strategic focal point amid rising competition among major powers in the Arctic.
Well, we are in a situation now where we need to stand together. The talks from the United States have not been respectful, and it have been based on, or the words used have not been respectful, and that's why we need to, in this situation, stand together. And in Greenland, we're willing to do that with all the countries that wants us good and wants to respect us and wants to have a partnership with mutual respect, and that's how it's going to be.
Elsewhere in the world, a deadly explosion rocks Iran's strategic Bandar Abbas port, a major gateway for trade in the region. Eyewitness video from the air shows emergency crews battling massive flames following Saturday's blast, which killed at least 40 people and injured over 1,000, according to Iranian state media. Initial reports point to chemical materials stored at the port as a possible factor, but authorities say the exact cause remains under investigation. The Bandar Abbas port is critical to Iran's shipping and trade flows, and any extended disruption could impact cargo movements across the Strait of Hormuz, a key global energy and trade route. Iran's defense ministry, however, denies speculation linking the explosion to missile-related solid fuel storage. Now, over in Rome, dozens of cardinals gather to pay their respects to Pope Francis at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. A single white flower marks his resting place, honoring his legacy of humility over opulence. More than 400,000 people, including world leaders, monarchs, and global business figures, attended the burial ceremony on Saturday, reflecting the Pope's wide influence beyond religious and political lines. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday at the age of 88, leaving a legacy that continues to shape social values and global conversations. A decade may have passed, but Pope Francis's message of mercy and compassion continues to inspire the Warayons, the people of Eastern Visayas, one of the areas hardest hit by Super Typhoon Yolanda. Pope Francis made a historic visit to Leyte in 2015 to comfort communities devastated by one of the strongest storms on record. As Zandra Ochoa reports, the faithful are paying tribute to the people's Pope with masses and memorials across the region.
Tacloban residents gathered again Saturday afternoon for two masses to celebrate Pope Francis's life that made it memorable for Tacloban residents. In 2015, the pontiff visited the Philippines a year early than his scheduled trip. Pope Francis, a known climate change advocate, wanted to spend time with survivors after Super Typhoon Yolanda killed 6,000 residents. The Pope gave a predominant Catholic country hope.
Naalala natin yung pagpunta niya rito 10 years ago sa aftermath ng Yolanda. Hindi tayo iniwan. Tumayo siya dito, kasama natin. Pinalakas ng loob natin dito, hindi na sa Tacloban, pero sa buong Pilipinas. Sa halip ng lahat ng mga trahedya, dapat huwag lang tayo mawala ng pag-asa at tiwala sa ating Diyos.
With another looming typhoon threatening to disrupt his visit, the Pope did not waver. Donned in a yellow raincoat, wind blowing his hood, the Pope celebrated the Holy Mass at the tarmac of their destroyed airport.
We will never forget those moments. those are very memorable moments carved in our hearts and in our memories.
It is with what we do when we're living that truly makes us memorable to those who will be leaving behind. Just like Pope Francis to Tacloban residents. Zandro Ochona, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.